My name is Casey Taylor. If you guys don't know, if you haven't been on one of these before, and I am a customer training specialist here at JobTread, and I'm going to be hosting and moderating the Pro Spotlight today. For those of you who don't know, our breakout sessions that we have at our Connect conference every year in January is where we pull these presentations from. And so today's presenter, Sean Billings, is going to present his Connect presentation, and he will be sharing with you the breakout session presentation that he presented with Christine, his accountant. Christine's not going to join us today, but he's going to kind of walk through some of her section of the presentation as well today. But essentially what we do is we've asked for our JobTread users who we feel like really understand the software, are using it in some unique ways, to sort of share their wisdom with the broader JobTread community at Connect. And then here on the Spotlight, we've decided that the information was so great that we wanted to make it more broadly available. And so for anyone who wasn't able to attend the Connect conference this year, this is going to be a presentation that you would see were you to come in 2026. And so that's essentially what these are all about. It's peer-to-peer, helping one another learn from the experience that we have, from the wisdom that we've had, from the knocks that we've taken as we've utilized JobTread and integrated it into our processes. And so that's what the Pro Spotlights are for. And that's really what makes this software so special, is this community of people that have committed to not only learning the software for their own implementation, but also sharing wisdom and helping one another. Not a lot of software operates this way. And so having worked here, man, it's just been such a great place for me to see people working really hard, helping other people working really hard. And so it's that community of builders and businesses who really causes this JobTread community to really stand out. And so we want to thank you for being a part of the JobTread community. Thank you for being here. If you're not part of the JobTread community, I hope that you learned something that will encourage you to explore how JobTread might be a solution that you would utilize for your business to help you with your estimates and, even with your accountants as you get into your construction business and trying to scale. So, um, essentially today, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through his presentation. And then once we have the presentation, we're going to have a chance for you to ask questions. So I'll get to that in just a second. But first, let me just let you know a little bit about our presenter today. So Sean Billings is the owner and operator of Credible Construction out of Dover, New Hampshire. So if we got anybody from New Hampshire, Sean's in your neck of the woods. Incredible Construction has been customers with JobTread since the winter of 2022, and we are excited to have them as a part of our JobTread family, and we're excited that Sean has agreed to present and just getting to chat with him a little bit, man. He's a great guy, and I think you guys are really going to benefit from what he has to share. And just from his perspective, again, we're all people that are jumping into our businesses and trying to find the right solution to help us, and I think Sean's really going to offer some wisdom for you today. So, first and foremost, let me just let you know that at the end of this training, we will have, or at the end of this webinar, we're going to have an opportunity for a Q&A. So a couple of things. First of all, don't use the webinar chat for your questions. Pop those into the Q&A section. So there's two very distinct sections. When you look at your specific, webinar, and you'll see a Q&A section, okay? So make sure that you go to the Q&A and pop your questions over there. And then at the end, we'll let Sean address those questions. If you have comments, please pop those into the chat. But if you have any specific questions that you'd like for him to answer, you can ask those into Q&A. And if you have any other questions that are just JobTread related, I will be over in the Q&A section answering those questions. Except for the questions that I feel like will be really good for Sean. So again, chat, make comments. If you have any thoughts or just like things that you love, you can pop that stuff in there. But if you have questions, pop those into the Q&A. And this is a question everybody asks every time. So this will be replayed and you will have the ability to watch this afterwards. We'll post the link both in our help desk, but also on our website, as well as the JobTread Pros Facebook group. And that should be up probably tomorrow. Okay, so don't worry. This is going to be recorded. You'll have access to it later if for some reason you have to pop out. Okay? All right. So today, Sean's presentation is going to be called Estimate estimate for your customer job cost for your accountant. And so would everybody please give a nice JobTread Pro Spotlight welcome to our co-presenter today, Sean Billings. Take it away, brother.
Thanks, Casey. Really appreciate it. Um, so as Casey said, we joined JobTread in 2022 and we weren't sure quite how to use the program and what to do with it. We went to the first connect, and that's actually where we learned the most about what we were going to do and how we were going to start. And it just kind of took off from there. And um, through many different iterations of what we were going through, we decided on this avenue of how we were going to estimate and how we were going to track our cost codes. And number one, we wanted to make sure that everything that we started on in the beginning could flow through to everyone, through our job costing, through our customer, through our trade partners, and even back, into the end with Christine, our bookkeeper, and being able to make sure that we did everything correctly and tracked everything. So a little bit about kind of how we got there. We decided to estimate by groups. So we have a couple of in-house carpenters. We also sub out a lot of specialty trades like plumbing, electrical, um, drywall, things like that. So we estimated like that to be able to track and kind of keep control of what we were estimating, right? And then customers can also see how we are sending that estimate to them so that they can really understand what our goals are, what we're doing, and what they're paying for. Um, we also, to do this, we utilize custom fields and views. It really helps to streamline the process to know like what you're looking at. So when I estimate by groups, I can then take that, give that to the customer, but then my next section with using the custom field and views, we can have a completely separate view for job costing that only gives us the items that we want. And I'll show you an example of how we run through our proposal and make it easier to estimate in a way. We try to keep it very simple. I'm not trying to make this process more difficult than it needs to be. Um, and then again, doing all of that should be able to flow from our estimate into a proposal to bid request to purchase orders seamlessly. Um, One big thing that really helped us along the way was, I don't know if anyone has put this selection on, but the cost code tracking selection, that's really where all of this kind of started to come together. Um, we were struggling with, making separate items for the guys to clock in and out of, going from, items that don't need to be in there, and then having to say, well, this didn't line up with what we actually spent. It just created a lot of confusion, really. So we turned on the cost code tracking, and that kind of changed everything for us, being able to just push everything into JobTread the same way that it would go into QuickBooks, with, some few differences, right? And then again, we have custom views that we can use for all that. And then um, also trying to structure our cost codes for our bookkeeper. And one of the ways we did that was just separate everything. So for demo, we have 3 different items. We have demo labor, demo material, and demo subcontractor. That way we can really track what gets pushed to QuickBooks and how. And I'll show you an example. Oh, So I have this fake job that we set up here. And one of the big takeaways that I did, and you can see here, is that we have a couple custom fields. Number one, we have the status field, which you can go through, and we have different meanings behind them. We all know what they are. Red is nobody's touched it. We haven't done anything with it. So anyone can kind of come in here and go, okay, what's the status of this item? So we have all these demo items in here. And you can also see we have this other custom field named units, and then a unit type, so that I know for dealing drywall, if I type in 100 square feet, I have a simple formula that then uses this hours per square foot unit number, and it spits out the hours rounded up, in this case, that it should take for us to do the job. So I really tried to separate this out in a way where we want the hour over here because we need to know how many hours is it going to take for us to do this job. Do we have 50 hours to demo or do we have 10? But also at the same time, there's nowhere else in here to put, is it square footage? Is it linear footage total? And that allows us now to then really separate estimating from plugging in numbers. And I can have anybody plug in numbers. So our designer can come in here as she's getting design stuff figured out and run down this list, start to put some stuff in that she knows we're doing, get some totals in there. If we're going to take out 2 doors, for instance, and then what's the time that it's going to do. And really, that's how we built our entire estimating system. You can see that our formulas are very simple, probably a little more than it even needs to be, but it gives me the option to round up by decimal points or whole numbers if I decide to. But again, the goal is have it simple enough on the left side here to where anybody can come in and start to plug in these numbers, but then your real estimating on the right side can be done by the estimator to make sure that the numbers actually are in fact what they should be. So we do that with all of our in-house work. When it comes to materials, we did it a little differently in materials. We went to using groups because at the end of the day, each material is going to have its square footage or total already. We don't need the hours there. So for 2x4 walls, I can plug in 100 square feet and then have it get all the items within using the quantity of the group, and it will plug in how many it thinks we need for that based on the formulas that we set. So that's how we estimate. And I'll show you in a minute how we can take this estimate and have it look really presentable for your customer, for your trade partner, for anybody that you want. And JobTread offers, this is one big question we got in our presentation, was like, how did I get things to look the way that they look on the proposal? And JobTread offers a lot of formatting. So like here, color orange. Right now, it doesn't look like anything, but when you get it to the proposal, it'll show in orange, highlighted. And this will all look very nice to the customer. And JobTread has that on their page. I went ahead and made my own page that I can copy and paste from as I need to be able to do some of that stuff as well. So here, the example of our professional estimates. You can kind of see here how we have it set up: project preparation, office, and then here's your bullets. So some of that formatting shows up here. Again, over here, we separate out our plumbing. So you can see here's the plumbing trade scope. This is what they're getting. And we go through and we set all of that. And again, some more samples that we put together. We have some bid requests where the bid request one is a difficult one. You see, we have a bunch of items here. I don't know about you guys. I know my trade partners don't want to fill in 50 different numbers. So we have tried to simplify that and get a little more information in the grouping or in one item. Since we job cost using the cost code tracking, we only really need everything to go to one item anyway, because that's how JobTread is going to use it. Whether you are doing material, I'm sure you've noticed that if somebody clocks in, it picks one item in that category and will clock into that one item, even if you want it or don't want it. So you can kind of guide the system in the way that you want by saying, this is the one item I want it to use. If I want to estimate with 15 different items for tile to get my price close, I can. But then when I go do a bid request, I can delete all of them except for one. And then when I make a purchase order, I put the purchase order to that one. And then we can funnel everything into that. It just makes it easier in the end. And, you know, you don't have to worry about the items so much, but it is helpful. And you can see here, that's kind of what I'm talking about with the one price. We just said, enter your price. We put all the information up at the top. And again, they can show us how much it costs, and we have the information. This is another sample of box that you can use in the formatting in JobTread, where you can create the box with some project details that sometimes painter, plumber, whatever want to know. We have them preset, and then we can just fill in the answers as we have them. One of the big reasons for doing all of this is to streamline job costing. I know it sometimes can get overwhelming and confusing. Where do I look? What do I do? You know, did we actually spend this amount of money? Did we not? And I think being able to use cost code tracking, it at a level gives you one spot to worry about and to look at versus going in and looking at 500 items and wondering, really breaking it down. If you need to do that, I feel like you can do that on a level where you're looking at receipts, you're looking at other things. You don't need to focus on it in your job costing, and you can really look back through and job cost your projects much more simply. And the other side of that, Christine spoke to a lot of this. So Christine has worked with us since we met her at that first JobTread Connect. She redid our entire QuickBooks system, made it work so that it would integrate beautifully with JobTread. And there are pros and cons to entering different things into different spots. When it comes to job costing and job specific stuff, we want to do every single thing in JobTread. When it comes to QuickBooks and entering in receipts that aren't job related, that goes into QuickBooks. That's something that Christine does. If you were to do it the other way around, it doesn't always push back into JobTread, and you may not have accurate number. So you just want to make sure you're doing that accurately. I do want to just circle back real quick and show you our job in here, and a couple of our custom views that we have set up to really help streamline this process for us anyway, and show you guys what we do. So we have a few different ones in estimating. I can see post contract if I want, so that I can see what we actually have budgeted or not. And because sometimes it's easy to lose track of, did I put this in the proposal? Did I not? And then we have a bunch of project manager ones where we can track labor separately in here, see what people are clocking in and out of, and how much we have left. Same thing with material tracking, but you notice everything is broken down into that cost code versus having, you can still see your items in here, but it's going to only put it to one item. You don't really need to dive into each item. You know that they're there as long as you costed them correctly into the spot you want. One of the other big things too with this that we've been able to leverage is, yes, we have this done by cost code, but also on the same time, we use the not always cost code, right? We are using the cost type. We're using that a lot to be able to really filter out and change the way our custom views here are done. So we've even done a couple where we have designer scope of work. That's an item that's not going to get put on anything. It's for the designer, but we can filter that out. We have one for stock or not used. So you can kind of play around with the cost type to be able to get your custom views the way that you want them in JobTread, but also not have them affect anything you're doing sending over to QuickBooks, except for if you are doing something, right? So our cost code here, for instance, this is where we separate everything out. You're going to want to make sure that you're doing the right thing here. This is what's going to really affect you. And for instance, we recently just had a shower door installed and I put it to some contractor. We purchased shower door from somebody. I put it to subcontractor. We get audited from the insurance company saying that they did installs for us, but they just provided the door. So now I'm paying workers' comp because I didn't select the right category. Christine caught it, said, this is on your subcontractor list. If you don't want it to be, you're going to have to make sure that you click the materials. But if I want, I can still do material and do subcontractor here so that it shows up on my subcontractor report because we're getting it from someone else and I don't want it to be a material. If that makes sense. So I think utilizing cost type, utilizing cost code, and really understanding cost code is going to get you where you want to be in QuickBooks or your accounting software. Cost type is going to get you many different uses of custom views in JobTread to be able to track numbers and put things where you want them. We have a few other different views, but I think that pretty much explains how we're trying to use JobTread, job cost, the importance of cost codes and cost types. And then we're going to get into a couple things of what was important to Christine in doing our presentation and making sure that what she's really trying to do is set us up for success, to make sure that everything we're doing from the beginning goes through to her so she can do her job good, but also so that we can make money, so that she can give us reports. And it's super important to be able to job cost correctly so that you know if you're making money or you're losing money. And getting your QuickBooks Online, your products and services, your income and expense accounts and your deposit accounts and classes, having somebody who knows that stuff, I mean, I can't explain how beneficial it's been to have her set that up correctly. I don't think we would be where we are. I think we'd still be scratching our heads, wondering if we're making any money at all. Um, and now we're growing. We're making good steps because she set all this up correctly from the beginning. And that's kind of where we talked about the cost codes, the sub cost code, the cost type. She was able to go a little more in depth on that stuff than I can, but it's super important. And the other thing about Christine is she is a job cost accountant. Apparently, they're not all created equal. Not every accountant or bookkeeper can do construction, job costing. There's a special way of setting it up so that you can enter it once it gets synced over, and you don't have to worry about entering things in multiple times, which we all know creates errors every single time. And let's see here, it's just chaos. So making sure that you get somebody in that knows what they're doing when it comes to job costing, it's going to save you a ton of time and money. Even if it does feel expensive in the beginning, it is worth it. So I talked about this a little bit as well, but again, I'll just touch on it a little bit. Cost codes, sub cost codes, being able to track, manage, do reports, improve your budget, get historical data. That's a big one. See what you did last year versus this year. And then when you got your products and services, don't know a ton about all of that. That was more for Steam, but I'm sure we can get you answers on that. So yeah, I did touch on this earlier as well, that if it's job related, make sure it goes into JobTread. Non-job related overhead expenses go into QuickBooks. Apparently that's an unpopular opinion, but I would also agree it's the way to go 100%. I personally, I care, but I don't necessarily on a day-to-day basis need to worry about all the other information that's going into QuickBooks. I really only care what's happening about the jobs and making sure that those are done the way that we want them. Create consistency. You can decide what kind of level of detail you want. And you also don't need an expense account for every transaction type. I would agree with that. If you're doing $50 a year, it probably can go somewhere else. Here's a graphic on integration and how it works, which direction things flow. I know Casey said that he can put this graphic out if anybody's looking to get it after, get a better idea where you should put things and where they should flow. For instance, we put customers in JobTread, then it flows to QuickBooks. So all of this is to say, are you covering overhead? Can you go through your job costing properly to make sure that you are getting direct costs only, or that you aren't getting direct costs only, that you also are covering overhead? It's very important to make sure that you're getting the job costing done. And then a couple of tips and tricks through some of this. So I'll go back in and I'll show you in our system a couple different things. But I did kind of explain already the job costing material at the cost code level. It does pull only one cost item. So you got to make sure that, for instance, if sometimes we accidentally put a item in and then we want to change it later to something different. If it's already tied to a bill or already tied to a contract, then you're not going to be able to change. The item has to stay in. So being careful of where that one item gets tied to, it's also very important because you won't be able to delete the item. Um, and then I had a tip on the cost inbox, which I will show you. When we have the guys entering in a new expense, one of the big issues that we had was coming in here and under additional options, it would get clicked as billable. Well, that creates a huge problem in JobTread or in QuickBooks. And then, so what we found too is making sure that when somebody comes in and they put in something and saves it as a draft in here, we wanted this bill material. We made it so that that was the initial default one that came up. JobTread had another one that was just called bill that we deleted, and that allowed the material one to come up first. It does it alphabetically, I think, and how it's set up. So making sure that that was done right, because the other bill template had everything marked as billable, and then it created a bunch of issues in QuickBooks and we had to go back through. So be careful when using this to make sure no one is putting anything across they shouldn't be. Another thing that we do too is fixture tracking. I have to show a job to show you that. We have this inventory tracking here. So you can see it in here is anything, for instance, route, right? We have as a tracking. We set up a very simple custom field that says, is it trackable inventory? If it says yes, it shows up here. We've also created some items that, let's say a customer is purchasing a mirror. We create a mirror item, make it trackable, and then we can at least see, has it been ordered? Is it at the vendor? Is it on site? So we have another custom field for that, some delivery notes that we can enter, and then just dates on when was that item done? Is there a committed cost on it? If there isn't, then I might need to add it into the budget. If there is a budgeted cost, you can also come here and see what is that budgeted cost. Are we going over or not? And this for us has been a big thing in making sure that our orders are actually getting ordered. I don't know how many times, like, I put Studer trim and grout, whatever, on our estimate, and then the tile guy will supply everything except for those two items. So it kind of gets left out and lost. And then we're like, oh yeah, we have to order that. We'll have the sheet now where our designer can come in and say, has this stuff been ordered? And start pushing it to the right person. So these custom fields, again, are huge. Vendor, like, you can do so many different things. It's just kind of going, okay, start simple, start with what you need to do. These are just some ideas on what you can do. You know, what's the ETA of the item? For instance, this item's going to be, next year or something. Put it in there, and then we can just run down that list. Or when's it expected at the warehouse if there's a delivery? This is hugely helpful for my project manager, who can come here and make sure that this job is actually ready for construction. And if it isn't, go to the proper place to make sure that it is ready. Uh, Recently, we've also been doing a design specification sheet, which we haven't used before. You don't want to touch on it huge, but it is nice to be able to have a spot to say, this is kind of our final stuff. So, what's our final floor plan? And then I can come in here and make sure all these are going to be spec items in here, but this was just to say what has been selected as a spec item or not. You could actually do that on the specification sheet. Like I said, I won't go and do it big, but this has been something new that we recently added as a good spot to be able to go in and see our specification and kind of get a good just overview. Like right now, this is just going to be a bunch of stuff, but if we were actually working on this project, I could come in here and the designer will be filling out stuff or adding things that she needs, what the paint colors are, and I can just come here and grab the information. Just another really good use of custom fields and some of the stuff that JobTread offers. And then just back to here in our estimating, we just have a design specification item at the bottom where the designer may come in here and just use this a lot as the starting point of our canvas scan. This is a great spot too for something like this where we can enter the link in, make it a specification item, and then share the specs with the customer. Now they can see the links. Whereas before it was kind of difficult. Like, can we send the customer the link? Do they get it? Can they view it? It's kind of a learning curve there, but this is a great spot. We send it out. People can then just click on it when they go over to it and go to where they need to check out what we've said. And then we just kind of move everything down into approved for construction once it is 100% done and approved by the customer. There may be better ways to do this. This is just our way. And I think that was about it.
Sean, that was great stuff, man.
Yeah, I might have ran through it a little fast, though. I guess
No, that's good.
that was a perfect time for question.
That's great. I think we're probably going to have 20 minutes worth of questions. We have a ton of questions, and I think probably plenty of opportunity for you to expand on some of the things that you've already talked about with those questions. So, first of all, thank you guys so much for popping those questions over into the Q&A. And Sean, man, thank you for that presentation. There were so many people that were impressed with your actual documents themselves. So we're going to have some questions. I put some text formatting questions or a link to some of the text formatting into the chat. But Nicole wanted to know how long it takes you to complete an estimate typically.
Oof, that's a good question. I take a lot of time because I also want to make sure that everything is in there. I don't want to have to go back in and remember later that the customer told me they wanted to save the mirror. So I'm going to go in and write, save the mirror, put it in red, make sure everyone knows this thing's being saved. So I probably take more time than I should in some of those things. If I wanted to blast out an estimate though and say, hey, look, the wording isn't correct, but I know the numbers are good, I could probably do a bathroom estimate in, let's just say a half hour to an hour. But in reality, getting the wording on some of the stuff right, it probably takes me, you know, 4 to 8 hours to estimate a bathroom. But knowing that I'm also putting in information that's going to be helpful to my installer, to the trade partners, to the customer. That's really where I spend a lot of my time. The estimating part is pretty easy. Plug in numbers, see what it spits out, and adjust from there based on what I think it'll actually take.
That's good. um, so Chris Bryant asked a question that, Chris, if you go over into the chat, you're going to see that link to text formatting. Sean, everybody was very impressed with how you're utilizing your colors and then your different, sort of call out boxes. So
That seemed to be the thing in the presentation too, that I kept getting questions about that more so than actually how I estimate or any of that.
well, you got plenty of other questions, but I will say that there was a run on those questions for for a hot minute. So I put
But
that link in the chat so people would have the ability to go back and check that out.
I created a Word doc that I'm pretty sure from the presentation. I don't know where that's available or if it is. But when I did the original presentation there, I have some documents there, and I'm pretty sure I uploaded it to there.
Do you have if you have that doc, or even if you can get me that doc, I'll go back. I didn't have it attached to your presentation, but somebody already asked for your slides, and so I figured you and I could talk about this afterwards, and if you were cool with it, like we could post some of that tomorrow when we post the Pro Spotlight, when I put the link up in the JobTread Pros Facebook group, we can attach some of that into comments so people can potentially have access to that. Cause I know you had, kind of your own worksheet of some of those.
Yes, and it was just an easier way of being able to copy and paste quickly without having to worry about it.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if, having only been here since January, if they did this before your presentation or not. But I know that on that page, if you go back up in the chat, everybody, and you look at text formatting, I, having scrolled through that page on our help desk, there are some options that you can copy directly off there if you need those as well. But we'll try to see if we can't get one of those attached to the post tomorrow for sure. Okay, Danielle asked, when creating the formulas for the materials, supplies, etc., for the cost groups, how did you come up with a baseline, being that each project is different?
So I actually owe a lot of that to Clear Estimate. We used Clear Estimates for probably 10 years before we moved everything over to JobTread. So some of that came from, they had numbers predetermined. So per lineal foot of baseboard, they gave it a multiplier number. I didn't, I took a lot of those numbers over, but they were just based on, like, I had already made adjustments to them based on what we actually do. Um, and just kind of knowing to, like, oversee so many projects, like if I'm demoing a very basic bathroom down to the studs, and it comes out with 48 hours, it's not taking somebody you know 6 days to demo a bathroom. We're doing it in 3 probably. So my estimating's off. Like, so I can go through the numbers and get a rough idea, but a lot of the baseline stuff was just knowing, like, hey, we've demoed enough bathrooms to know that it's going to take me, 2 to 4 days to demo a bathroom, no longer, and kind of everything else along the way as well.
Yeah, so we have a ton of questions still. We got about a dozen, so hope buckle up, Sean, buckle up. Uh so Stephanie asked, how do you prepare a bid request with just one sum? Emphasis on the one. Every time she creates one, she has to pull items over from the budget line items, and some of the subs don't break it down like she does. She only gets one lump sum back. I'm assuming that this is, yeah, for the bid requests.
Yeah, let me see. I'm gonna get out of the presentation mode. I try to do this without showing too much, customer information. Um,
Do you wanna not share your screen and then kind of find yourself in good place?
yeah, let me do that for a second. I'll unshare, um, and then I can show you better, like one of our more recent bid requests.
Yeah, some of you guys who aren't presenting or who haven't presented won't know the joys of thinking about all of the information in your job tread that uh you love for your internal roles, but you don't want everybody in the world to know like what's your margin? What did you set your margin at? So even in a second, I know, Sean, there have been a few questions about if you would mind showing your cost code setup, and I would caution you to make sure that you've scrolled far enough down where your margin is not shown on that screen, so you're not forecasting that to the world. But at some point, I know we had several people asking if they could see your cost. 3 people, as a matter of fact, asking if
Okay.
they could see your cost code setup. So when you do, just make sure you scroll down on that job costing screen
Sure.
drop enough down so that your margin.
Okay. So here, I'm assuming this is kind of what you're talking about. So one of the things we did when I created this document here is you can see everything is in the group level. And then I just said down here, here's one price. So I can kind of show, maybe I can show you in the estimate. Um, I estimate this with about 5 different items to get my actual price here for plumbing the shower, or 3 different items. When I pull everything in here, I delete the 2 items that I don't, I just pick one arbitrarily because again, if I'm your job costing by cost code, it doesn't matter which item as long as you know which item and you make sure that everything that you can control gets pushed to that item. So in this sense, I just pick this item and we say, enter your total here. Here is all the information that you need or want as the installer. And then obviously we'll upload plans and give them the spec books or whatever else they need to be able to make the decision they need, and just say, in this case, I know these guys will give me a price based on shower, the tile walls, the vanity, the toilet. But when I estimate it, I'm going, is there a new valve? Is there all these things? So I'm going to estimate 5 different parts and only keep the one that I need. And what I do at the group level is I just copy the information from the part, paste it into the group level, and then I send the document over. That way they don't get confused, because I don't know how many times I've had multiple items where I know what they mean. I send it over and then they think it's 2 toilets. And I'm like, no, it's 1 toilet, but it's moving location. Oh, you know, just didn't get it. So that's how we're doing it. No matter how many items you have under the group, just move all the information to the group and keep only 1 item for them to enter the total into. But bid requests don't matter anyway in that sense. It's not actually going to affect your budget or do anything unless you take this bid request and then make it into a purchase order. Once you make it into a purchase order, then it's tying numbers to the item. But this is your setup for that. Hopefully that answered the question correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think that's good. I think those bid requests look great, as a matter of fact. Okay, so Ross said, "Do you have a framework, like a set of rules by which you have made your decisions regarding when to lump different categories into just one lump or one cost code, or when they belong as a separate cost code or separate cost codes? Or like maybe how are you choosing to create your cost codes?"
So I think we went very simple. Um, since we're doing bathrooms and kitchens, I feel like, I don't. So sometimes, I guess this is a good way to answer. I don't do decks, right? I don't do. We don't do siding, for instance. However, let's say I want to track a certain part of a project, like we're going to put a new door in, and we will have some siding and we'll have a few other things to deal with, but it's not necessarily decking or siding. But I want to track this separately from everything else completely. So we did make siding and decking cost codes. We don't actually use them for doing those two items specifically. We just kind of say, hey, I want to track this part of that project separately because I know the guys are going to work on this different than the rest of it. And we kind of use it for that stuff. Um, and I would just say we started with a baseline of like what everyone would start with: demo, framing, plumbing, electrical. But I can pull that.
Yeah. Did you want to show everybody your cost codes? I mean, again, before you share your screen, make sure that your margins and stuff aren't shown. I know those are right above your cost codes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that doesn't matter to me much because I feel like every company is different. So I mean, I'll even tell you now, I put 50% markup, but that could easily be 10% markup, and I could charge $100 an hour more for everything that we're doing. It's how I arrive at the number. So I think the markup thing, it really is just like, do you like if the average of my guys was $60 an hour and I use that number to average out and it works, great. But if I put in $100 an hour and my average is 60, but then I mark it up 50%, I'm going to get a different number, but maybe that's the way I do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus somebody else. So those things are tough in that review. So here is this. I'm sorry, it takes a second sometimes to get there. Let me read you that. There's too many questions along the way. I'll just show. And then half the time my sheet screen sharing pop-up would pop up over everything I was trying to read. So that was fun. So some of the things that get put in here, uncategorized material and labor, it's just you need it because sometimes things don't get categorized. So some of these are some things that Christine put in. I don't always use them, but they're here if I need them. We wanted to separate our fixture costs when we buy them at the supply house, whether they're vanities or plumbing fixtures or whatever. So we use this one a lot because we do most of our stuff through this supplier. And that's simply just so that I can track it to know how much are we actually purchasing through them. Same thing with tile and flooring material. That one was just if we're putting that on our estimate, we don't always how much in the year are we selling of that. And then just kind of go down through the list. These are just some other things that we just wanted to track sometimes. Like if I do a design agreement, how much money are we taking in during the year? If we're doing floor plans and design, what is that costing us? So these are all just like initial setup costs, permits, etc. And then this is really where we get into like trade partners or materials or labor. There are, I'll show you down here, right? So millwork. There's two different ways to think of this in JobTread. One where, I put everything under millwork only because in the bathroom, it's kind of like I could probably have one item in every one of these categories for a bathroom, but who is going to want to track that? Nobody. So instead of having one item in all of these, we're probably going to just move all those items into millwork and just leave it under millwork. So I created the main category of millwork and made everything else underneath it a sub so that I have the option to do it how I want. But in JobTread, when you go back through and you look, it's very weird with its giving you totals. So it won't necessarily give me a total all the time of everything under that millwork unless it's all listed the same. So I was I only did it with millwork because again, we're going to have a lot of items that just go under that millwork initial thing because most of our jobs are smaller in that sense. But all these other items up here, I wanted to be able to see that total right at the top when I do drywall labor and it tells me, 5,000 right at the top versus having to then click through another group. I'm sure you guys have dealt with that. Like, how many groups do you have to open to get the information you want? That's kind of where we're at. And so I separated all these out with separate cost codes. I did originally have a main group for all of these, and I had to go back through and delete it all because then I'm just opening up more and more groups just to see a total number. It wasn't worth it. And like you guys could see, millwork is just my generic way of basically throwing all our finished stuff at the end into one category because we don't do any of these in a large sum. It's all, 2 hours here, $500 there, and then our trade, most of the stuff we sub up. And again, you can see we still have siding, roofing, decking, concrete, miscellaneous, warranty. Don't use this stuff very often, but it's there. As I want to track something separately than everything else, I know what it's for. That kind of thing.
No, that's good. Okay, so we've got a couple of different questions that are sort of here thinking about cost codes. So Griffin said, how do you find job costing on active projects when tracking by cost code? He said they found it challenging in the past as JobTread will attribute bills evenly over all items in the cost code group and therefore does not weigh each line item in terms of the amount, I guess the weight of it when costing. And he said for them, resulting in inaccurate job costing until all items in the cost code group are marked as final. Tough question. He said that's a tough question to ask in the message. If it's unclear, we can move forward and maybe you guys can connect.
So, okay. Can you just one more time read it? Just so
I think until things are finalized, he's just basically saying that JobTread, kind of will attribute the bills evenly over all of the items in a cost code group, and therefore it doesn't equally weight.
So that is actually something that you control 100%. If you think of it in this terms, when somebody clocks in under one of the hourly cost codes, I'm let's see if I could just find a job that we've started that I can get the cost code up on. But so when you're doing the labor, I'll share the screen. It's tough because it won't let me. It still shows the address and stuff. I don't know if that matters or not.
Yeah, well, that's a more for you thing with your customers if you want their information to be included on here. So
right. So well, let's just say when you're doing the cost code for labor, when JobTread clocks somebody in, it's only going to clock them into one item. So for instance, I'm under this job now, you can't see it, but the guy's clocked into framing and it went to existing shower structure. None of the other items have any time costs to it whatsoever. It's only that one item. That does a lot of things, I think, for me in that sense too. Is let's say I decide I want to change one of those other items and I want to have it be a subcontractor, even if it's not the right item, I can change the cost code of that item because nothing has been put to it yet, and I can change it to subcontractor I think I know what he's saying as far as when it comes to material, for instance, or subcontractor, and where you decide that is when you enter in your receipts. And if you pick every single item, for instance, like the framing, if you pick every item for that one, actually, you know what? I think I can show that. This one, I can still go down. Okay, so I could show this. All right. So you can see here, when we enter the receipts, right? Most of the items went to this one. For whatever reason, we have another $70 for this Home Depot bill to this one item, meaning whoever entered it in picked this item specifically for whatever reason, or it was on something else. So when we enter these in, you can see that they're all going to this one item right here. It really doesn't matter what's underneath all this. At the end of the day, we really just want to see, like, I budgeted 2,300. I estimated 2,300. My bills are 2,167, and we have $132 of budget left over, right? And then you can start to see your profit and all that on the same screen as well. So it's really up to you. So when you do trade partners and you're looking at entering in a PO, or you're looking at doing the bill for them, if you don't want it to go to every single item, just make sure that the bill or the PO has that one item on it. Because again, you'll be able to see it here at this group level. And that's really what matters the most, especially if you take this and you say, okay, framing subcontractor. That's really, this number is really all I care about with the subcontractor. Was this good? Was it not good? Did I go over or under? I hope that makes sense.
No, I think that's good. And some of this too, I will say we've had a bunch of different questions about really specific use cases. Your customer success manager is going to be a huge resource for you in helping you figure out how to set up specific things like your margin and markup. Those are fields that you can choose to see or not, but in terms of like how you want to set up your job tread. I know some of you are looking to do like certain percentages of your overall job to be reflected in terms of your overhead cost. Like your customer success managers will help you set all that stuff up. I know Sean is gracious with his time, but but he won't be our customer success manager for this. We'll let him walk us through it. He's doing, but so yeah, make sure if you have really specific questions, you guys are connecting with your customer success managers because they will be the one that are really going to get under the hood of your account. So, but
Mhm.
Eugene did have a question about how you handle change orders since you have an approved proposal. How do you do it? I mean, I could tell again there are
Yeah.
ways that you do change orders, but how are you handling those?
So we have in my main estimating group, I have a group that just says change orders or additional requests, and we start building items in that so that we know where those items are. Um, One of two ways. If it's a negative change order and you're getting rid of stuff, I recommend 100% do not build a new item. Take the item you already have in the original estimate and put a negative number against it when you pull it into your proposal. Creating a new item just now creates more things to look at, but you're just trying to zero out that initial item that you put in, or items. So if it's a negative, 100% make sure you're using the same items. If it's something new, I create new items. If it's something new, that way I can label it something different or tag it so that I know it's not for the original spot, it's for somewhere else.
Nice. I love that. Eugene gave you a pat on the back, said, loving the way that you structure things. How do you approach going from your budget to schedule? Do you have any shortcuts, or do you create separate templates and edit for each job? I know that we have some functionality to utilize our budgets to create our schedules, but how are you creating both of those? And are you, shortcutting that by, kind of overlapping those both, or how are you managing the schedule in addition to your budget?
So the schedule is done by our project manager. And what we are doing with schedules is we're basically just we're using that for our in-house guys to say this is where you guys are going every day and what you're doing. And then we separate out the trades so that we know, hey, there's a trade going to this job this day. And I'll actually just share it real quick. I have it up. Um, and I know I've shared this a couple connects ago. I shared kind of how we were doing scheduling. We really haven't changed it much. I hope someday, wink, wink, like, JobTread comes up with this check mark box or something that we could say this item has been approved and is final. But for now, this is another good.
Feature request board.
Here you go. This is another good thing though. Emojis, huge with the emojis, like just that checkbox to go. This guy is coming here today. It's approved. He's doing it. So for us, yellow means it's a trade partner. Black means it's somebody in house, and we can tag them. And then, we've got pink here just to say it's our site prep. But what we really try to do,
Are you using those task types?
we are, yeah, just a task type here, in-house construction. You can see the little emojis there too. Um, we do our if the guys are on vacation or any inspections of deliveries, templating.
Oh, that's great. So you're doing your vacation as a task type as well. I love it.
Yeah, only for in-house or the guys that are going to be in the field. If I'm taking a vacation, they don't really need to see it on their schedule. It, you know, maybe that doesn't matter, or maybe they do want to know. Then we'll put it on there. But this is definitely a good, like, hey, Scott, you're going to do a walkthrough and just make sure this is all set. That's why it's on the schedule for you. But then your real thing is to come over here and do a final touch up. And actually, this is another just little tip, right? When you're doing your location name, and it's I forget what it's exactly called, but it's not the actual location address. It's the one under it. I put in the customer last name because for us, we don't do everything by address. We do it by the customer name. So that's why you can see here, this is their name with their address attached to it, so we know what job it's doing. But we do have we have in our budget, we have a field where I can see the hours towards everything. So I can see hours for drywall. We just take that total and we just kind of say, okay, we got 8 hours for drywall. We'll put Mitchell here for 8 hours for this day for drywall. We've got some bathroom accessories for 8 hours and we'll put it in there. It's not a seamless thing. I mean, we definitely can't take the items and make a calendar. It would just be way too confusing. So we really just try to have one item for each guy for the day, or like, hey, you're going to do demo for 3 days. And we just have to adjust it for it. This is not a perfect system and it is very difficult to do. And probably the thing that we struggle at the most. But
Are you templating anything, your project managers for your schedules at this point, or do you kind of build it out by job? Are you utilizing your budget to create those schedules? How are you doing that?
we're not using the budget, but we do have a template in each job. So where's the template for that is under
Yeah, in your catalog
analog, right? Sometimes yeah, other worry.
and the schedule templates right there.
Yeah, schedule template. So we do have one for our standard bathroom. One of the things I started to get rid of, we've got to go back through here, is because of the other view we use, I get rid of all of these.
Dependencies.
Yeah, because when you use that other view, if I'm going over to my calendar and I want to move one item, and dependent on something else, it then moves things. I don't even know that it did it. So be careful of that. Thank you. Because we tend to live on that schedule sheet. Granted, Bodu, like that's up in our office that, to know go and where that day. Um, but, this is kind of our template. So you can see we do have our rough inspections and stuff. And this is what we're thinking would do. Like we're not doing painting, we're not doing electrical. But if we decide to, then we just change the task type A.
Yeah. Nice. No, that's good. I had somebody ask in the Q&A kind of in reference to earlier when we were chatting about vacation. Do you have a job for vacation, like a job called vacation?
No, we do have though a job office meetings and warranty work that we set up. So office meetings is just gonna be pretty much this is where everyone you can see it's time off, time off. We got a couple things in there. Um One of the things we've done recently is when it comes to the calendar on JobTread, and again, I wish everything could go in JobTread all the time. I really do. But it's not going to work for everything. So all of our office people, we're using Google for those calendar things. Uh, so we're really trying to separate it. Like if it affects the job and job site stuff, put it on JobTread. If it doesn't affect the job, like some of this, we used to have some other stuff in here and we got rid of it. Like, this one setting up rough inspections, like we want to make sure we're calling in time. So we have that in there. But if, my office manager is taking a day off and it doesn't affect the job in any way, shape, or form, then she puts that on Google Calendar. And then my lead carpenter's out, that goes here. But we do that all through that job here so that it shows up on the schedule. And you can see July 4th week, we got a couple time off here the day after. That just helps us set the schedule. Like we can't put Mitchell for work that day. Yeah. Then assign him to it. Make sure he's assigned to it, so that'll show up in some other spots. Warn you.
Yeah, no, that's good. All right, we have 2 more questions. We won't take any more. We can let you get um okay, maybe 3. Quick. How big is your company?
We have 2 guys in the field right now, and we have 4 in the office, including myself. I have an office manager, um, really taking care of everything. She's doing, HR, all that. And then myself, I'm the salesperson and estimator. It's just what it is right now. Hopefully, at some point, I won't be doing the estimating, but until we get our systems built, like we're really just focused on bathrooms because that's what we do mostly. Uh, when we start getting some of the larger stuff and the systems built up, then we can look at someone else. But then we have Nick, our project manager. We have a design coordinator who is a designer, a mixture of both, but she's really to try to help me pull these projects together. And then we just have our chief field guys, and we kind of work together to manage the project.
Love it. All right. So, David asked, do you share reports to your customers to verify bills that they've paid and bills which are due? If so, what's the best way that you found to do that for you guys?
No, I don't. The only things we share with customers are daily logs. Let's see, as far as so you should be giving them access to invoices, right? I don't know if there's any way to show this on the documents page. But I mean, the customer should be able to go in and click on customer invoices, click on vendor orders under their portal, or sorry, not vendor orders, customer orders and customer invoices. They should be able to click on those two and see that information in their portal. And if you need to verify that, you can go in and view it as them, see what they see. As long as you've given them access to the documents, they should be able to see all that stuff. I will say one of the big things it happens to me constantly, do it to myself. I know it's a problem, but I always forget. If you don't send an email, it will not give somebody access to the document. You have to give them access, make sure they have access, that you've done that for everyone. Every once in a while, if we have two customers and the husband is the one that signs and does everything, I'll forget to add the wife. And then she'll go into her email and go, this isn't the same as my husband's. Why? That's because I didn't add her onto one of the documents and get her access to view it. She couldn't see it. So that's a big one. And I found that when you send an email, they get access. When you don't send an email, if you bypass that and just approve it or whatnot, they don't have access.
All right, last one.
Huh?
And this is more of a a I would say everybody asking questions. We won't ask anymore. I will say Christine is his bookkeeper. If you guys are curious, maybe I'll have you give her email address at the end if you want to, where people can get a hold of her. I will say this again, though. We have a lot of bookkeepers. If you go to the marketplace, right, within your settings, in your main navigation, you go to settings and then you go to the marketplace tab. We have a lot of bookkeepers there as well. I think she's in there as well. Christine is. But this question from Andrea is a little bit more like theoretical. She says, trying to figure out how or the appropriate margin and markup has been very hard for them. She said, I know it's partially based on the market, but would love some advice on that from someone. So like, how are you guys figuring that out for you?
So I guess let's say you take last year, for instance, right? And say you look at your profit and loss, you have to know where your COGS are versus your overhead, and then see what you're left with, right? So if you have 60%, COGS and then you have 30% overhead, you have a margin of 10% left over. That should be what based on things I've heard, you want to be between 8 and 12% net margin after the year, right? Like that's where you want to be. So you just shoot for that, but you have to know your numbers. So you have to know what you're spending. You really have to look at that. If you have this historical data, I would recommend looking back through it. Again, like I mentioned this earlier, it's really hard. Like I can tell you, I charge 50% markup on everything across the board, but then I don't charge any markup on fixtures when you go to the plumbing supply place. There's a reason. The reason is it's easier for me that if I work with a outside designer and she wants to supply all the fixtures, I don't have to worry about missing out on my markup, but I've marked up all my other stuff 50%. So I'm still getting the margin I need, whether I sell the fixture on this job or not. So you just got to find out what works for you. I've dealt with so many outside people throughout all the years that I said, I'll just give the customer my price here, but I'm getting it somewhere else. So you just got to kind of go, where do I want it from? This is what I need. How am I doing that? And, if you're not making enough money, go up 3% on everything or 5% and see if it helps.
Yeah. No, that's good, man, Sean. That's really helpful. Dude, thank you so much for your time. And everybody, make sure you guys over in the chat, just make sure to thank Sean. He will have this presentation. We will have this presentation posted again tomorrow in the Facebook group, as well as in the help desk. It'll be there for you tomorrow. And then also, I think we're going to put it on our website. We're going to start making these available broadly so that other people who are thinking about utilizing JobTread will have the ability to kind of figure out how people that are using JobTread are interacting with the software. So thank you guys so much for jumping into the Pro Spotlight, Sean. Again, thank you so much for sharing, man. Thanks for taking your time and for meeting me. Let me get a chance to know you a little bit.
Well,
This is what makes this community special. Really, you guys sharing and being willing to ask questions, answer questions of one another. Because at the end of the day, it's a software that's meant to help you do your businesses. You guys are all very skilled, highly talented, and there's just going to be some things that we can help each other out. I will say, to reference many of the things that have been asked that I've just answered over in the Q&A, the Facebook group is a great resource for some of the questions that you guys are asking, like a great group, because you're able to ask other JobTread users, even the question that we just answered, like how you guys are calculating markup, how you guys are calculating, where you're calculating your overhead. Like those are great questions to ask other people in terms of what they're doing as well. So again, Sean, thank you. Hopefully you guys will jump back in. We've got another one in 2 weeks. I will say Rick Williams, we had a lot of people that were interested in that Pro Spotlight as well. We weren't able to share it because it's why even with Sean, we talked about what we shared on screen, because he shared, I think 2 or 3 months ago, and had a lot of information that was maybe sensitive. So he's going to be representing in 2 weeks. So if you guys are interested in that one, jump back in. He'll be doing a lot of stuff on reporting as well. But again, Sean, thank you. Everybody else, thank you. Hopefully we'll see you guys soon. Make sure you pop it on that trainings tab for anybody that has a desire to continue learning and growing. We have great trainings in the future, but we hope to see you guys soon. Thank you so much for being valued users. Again, Sean, thank you so much for jumping out there and presenting today. And we will see everybody soon, hopefully. You guys have a great rest of your week.
thanks, Casey.
Yep. Bye, everybody.